Hey y'all, it's Katie. Welcome back to From My Vanity, and welcome back for another palette palooza slash ranking my eyeshadow palettes. It's been so long since I have shared my reviews on palettes, and so long since I've been able to share with you guys the palettes I'm using, that I figured it would be a good idea to go ahead and go through all the palettes that I've been using ever since the move. So beginning of May is about when I moved, and kind of rank where they would be if I had to kind of pick from my least favorite all the way to my top favorite. I thought it'd be fun to do a ranking video. I've seen Samantha March do these ranking videos with palettes. I've seen Annette's Makeup Corner do these. She'll take her 10 most recent palettes and rank them. And so I thought that'd be a lot of fun since I did have 10 palettes to talk about. So we're just going to go through and talk about the pros and cons of each palette and explain why they landed in the ranking, starting from the very bottom and working our way all the way up to the top. And the first palette in my number 10 spot has to be the Dose of Colors Desi and Katy Friendcation palette. I used this probably maybe 3 times, not too often, but it was mainly for the matte shadows, because if you guys saw my review, I have done a full review and eye swatches of this on my YouTube channel before. I'll have that linked down below and up here in the eye. But the reason I put this on the bottom as number 10 spot for this ranking video is because I noticed when I was doing just all matte looks that it was a little trickier than I remembered to blend out the deeper tones, and I noticed that I had to work to make it look blended out and seamless, and I ended up having to use this over the lid just to kind of help things blend and mesh together. I don't know, it took a little bit longer, and then especially when I used this another day, this definitely took a lot longer to blend out. So I don't know, I just noticed that the mattes were a little bit trickier to work with than I remember. Overall, it's a nice palette. I'm glad I own it. I don't know, I have to be in the mood, and probably specifically to use the green color, for me to want to reach for this palette, just because there are other neutral matte shades in my collection that are much easier to work with, and you know, I have to be in the mood to want that grungy type of look that these foils give my eye looks. Okay, so next up I have the Covergirl Rain eyeshadow palette. This is a new release over the spring. I have no idea if it's new. I don't even know if it's still available now, and I did get to do a post with Covergirl creating an eye look using this palette specifically. I will have my blog post linked down below if you want to see the look I got. I thought the look I got was really pretty and I enjoyed it, and I created 2 other looks with this palette. Something to note is that this palette specifically does not have any mattes in it. The other ones in this collection do have some mattes. So for this one, after that post, I tended to use a matte from some other palette that I had in my collection when I would create looks with this. But it's a nice palette. It didn't blow me away with the intensity of these shimmers, because all of the shimmers are really pretty. I mean, there's no denying that they're pigmented and soft and just so smooth, and they swatch gorgeously and, you know, show up nicely. But something, and one of the reasons that this is ranked so low in my number 9 spot is that they're very softly shimmery, if that makes sense. They're nothing, even when you get it wet and put it on, they're nothing that's just oh my goodness, that shimmer is gorgeous on your eyes. It's just oh, that's a pretty blue. I hope that makes sense. I'm trying to explain it as best I can. The looks I got, I couldn't fault at all. I thought they were pretty. The blue and purple and gold were the standouts for me from this palette because they are the only pops of color in this palette, and they created really pretty looks. But I don't know, I just felt like all the neutrals in here when I did looks with them kind of just all looked the same, but it just wasn't my cup of tea. I wanted a little more pizzazz, and like I said, even when I sprayed them with some type of facial mist to get them as intense as I could, or I use a glitter glue underneath them to try to intensify them, I just never noticed them being that wha-bam in your face type of shadow. So for that reason, that's the main reason why I put it at number 9. But I mean, if you're wanting soft type of, still colorful eyeshadows, this is nice. It's a little bulky in my opinion for how much you get in this palette for it to be so large, and then the pans are so small. That's slightly confusing, but I mean, I can't dock the quality overall. It's just not my cup of tea with the intensity of the shimmers, and I just feel like it's just a very nice palette. But if you're wanting a palette to bring into your collection that will give you a bright purple and blue, I feel like there's a ton of other palettes at the drugstore you could probably pick up. I'm thinking Wet n Wild. I feel like their shimmer formula, and especially their little 3-pan trios, is a lot more wha-bam in your face, and you can really kind of wet it and amp it up to be even more, whereas this is just always, it's nice. Alright, so next up is the Wanderlust palette from Profusion. This is coming in at number 8. Mainly, well, a couple different reasons, but one of the biggest reasons that this is ranking quite so low, I guess it's not so low because I had 2 other palettes that I didn't like over this one. It's so hard to rank palettes. I should have put that in the beginning. It was very difficult to try to put these all in a ranking spot. Annette and Samantha, hats off to you for doing it so often, but I sat there for a long time. Anyway, one of the main reasons is that these 2 shades here, I absolutely hate working with because they are so chalky, chunky, and powdery. Like, do you see that? I don't know if you can see that. They look gorgeous in the pan, but they're just too flaky, I guess you could say. Like, do we see how patchy and chunky that is? And when you would try to put that on your lid, it would go on very patchy and then just glitter, and especially this one, just white chunks would flake all over your face, not only while you were doing your makeup, but throughout the day, which is entirely annoying and not something I have time for. I do not want to have a bunch of glitter falling over my face, and because especially this one being so chunky, if you tried to really layer it on and build up that color and take the time to make it work, it would flake off in big chunks throughout the day, fall on your face, and then it would just look weird on your eye. It would look very textured and spotty and whatnot. So those 2 huge duds, hated them in the palette, which was a bummer because this shadow, if it did work nicely, would be an absolutely gorgeous inner corner highlight. But if I try to use that in my inner corner, I just end up having all these little white flakes getting into my eyes. It wasn't a fun trip. But besides those 2 shadows, I can't fault it too much with the quality. This is so big, I'm trying to figure out how to hold it. I can't fault the quality of this palette too much. It's a nice palette, and I feel like it's around $10 or $15, which isn't bad for all of the colors you get. But something that is another reason I put it so low on my ranking list is that when it comes to mattes, you are extremely limited. So if you're someone who likes to do neutral matte browns in the crease, and in the outer corner, or maybe a bit of a deeper color in the outer corner, and then pop something on the lid, this palette is for you. But if I wanted to go with a really green look, this is really, these two are really all you get for in the crease when it comes to greens. This blue is like the only matte blue that you get to work with if you want to use it for the blue or the green looks or the purple looks or anything. That's the only type of really deep blue color. There's no type of mid-tone blue. There's no type of mid-tone green blue. I'm talking matte specifically. Some people do like using shimmers and working them into the crease. I'm someone who doesn't, so I depend on mattes to give me that. And this palette is just extremely limited. The purples and pinks had a lot more variety, which I appreciated, but I'm also someone who isn't always in the mood for a purple and pink eye look. I tend to do more yellows, oranges, and greens, and even blues over purples and pinks. It's just my preference. So, that's something to keep in mind, and probably why I rank it so low is because, while it does give a variety of colorful, purple, pink, and even this is like a blue purple, whatever. They're not something I pulled for too often except to test the shadow. So keeping that in mind, when I wanted to use these greens and the blue, I felt like unless I wanted to use this color or have a pink purple crease, all I had to work with were the browns. And today for this look, which I think it turned out fine, I just wish I had some other type of blue to use in my crease. I ended up using this shade very lightly in my crease and then putting a touch on the outer corner. And then I have this shade in my outer corner as well, and then this on my lid. And I think it's fine, it's nice. I just feel like trying to get this blue to show up and blend out lighter for me to use in my crease and kind of diffusing it up to my brow bone. I feel like it just looks a little patchy in here, and I'm just not crazy about it. Put it that way. The green shimmers in here are absolutely gorgeous. I love this one, but all I had to work with using those were brown unless I wanted to use the shimmers, which I just don't personally want to. So overall, I feel like that sums up my thoughts on this palette. Sometimes, depending on how I think about it, I think it's an okay palette. Other times, I just really don't like working with it. So I figured it was an appropriate place to put it at number 8, and it just depends on what you want in a palette and what you're looking for. And, maybe your price range, you're wanting to only spend $10, $15 to get a couple colorful eyeshadows to use occasionally. Maybe it'll be for you, but for me, when I wanted to embrace color, which I felt like this palette could give me, it just didn't take me all the way there. Next up, we're going to talk about the Urban Decay Born to Run palette. Now this palette, I kind of had a lot of similar thoughts to the Profusion palette, except that the quality here I enjoyed a lot more. So therefore, I figured sorry, one of the shadows is broken, so I'm trying to catch it. So that's why I put it at the number 7 spot, one higher than the Profusion. But here's the Born to Run palette, and I think the biggest reason it landed so low on my list, because you're going to see as we get into the higher ranking palettes, is just because of the color options. Like this, when you look at it, it's like, oh, there's color, you know, it'd be fun, colorful looks. Yes, fun, colorful looks that are safe for a neutral lover. So I feel like if you're one of those people who are very into neutrals but like to explore color a little bit, this is a really good palette. But for someone like me who, if I'm going to wear a purple look, I want to go all into the purple. Or if I'm going to wear a green look, I want to go all into the green. This one I felt still kept me in that neutral range. And I'm sure, like, looking at it, you can kind of tell, like, this is very bright, yes. But it's not that crazy bright, especially when you're working it with a brown, because it's not like you have a brighter or deeper orange to work with, you know what I mean? And again, like, this shade is really pretty, but you know, what are you going to work it with in addition to that to deepen it up, even if you want something more than that? You only have the brown and the black. So for those reasons, I just felt like this, it was a nice neutral palette for me. And I wasn't always into the neutral looks. But when I was, it was a nice palette. I couldn't really fault the shadows for blending. I will say though that this Punk, I really didn't like working with. This shade Good Is Gone was a little bit easier to work with, but this other brown was a little bit trickier, and I don't really know why. And I don't really get why there were two browns so close in tone in the same palette. That kind of thing annoys me. It's like, please take one out and put something else in there, you know, use your space wisely. But other than having a couple issues blending out that brown, I didn't have any issues blending out the mattes. They blended out really nicely, and the shimmers are pretty. They're nothing super crazy, and honestly, if you're going to compare it with that Covergirl, they don't, the swatch, like, feel on your finger as soft as the Covergirl, but they do intensify, I feel like, and become more foiled than the Covergirl. So I hope that is helpful to you. But I mean, they're nothing crazy, but with some setting spray or some glitter glue underneath, they do show up really pretty. But anyway, overall, it's a nice palette. It's a nice neutral palette. I can't really fault the quality too much. I mean, like I said, a couple issues here and there, you know, blending out some of the mattes or whatnot. But overall, it's a nice palette. It's just not for me. So I hope that makes sense. I do think this is a solid palette for Urban Decay to be selling, because as we get more into exploring a world of color, and I feel like the makeup industry as a whole is getting more into color, this is a really good colorful neutral palette, if that makes sense. So I feel like I could totally see this becoming Urban Decay's new naked palette, so to speak. So I hope that makes sense with my review and kind of explaining why it is so low. But for me personally, it ended up at the 7th spot. Okay, so next for the 6th spot, I have a glitter palette, and this is from GLF Cosmetics, and they sent me, I believe this is called their Glitterlicious palette. It's not on here, but they sent this to me. Oh, it's on the inside cover. Glitterlicious. They sent this to me with a couple other things, SPR, months ago, and I'm someone who's always scared of glitter, so I kind of drug my heels, but finally put it in my collection. I was like, you know what, I gotta give this a try. Even though glitter terrifies me and I hear it can make you go blind, I wanted to give it a try just because there's no denying it's really, really pretty. So I have been giving it a try, and I really like this. And it's a pretty affordable palette if memory serves me correctly. It's been a while since I got it. Back in April. No, it was before April. Anyway, it's been a while. But GLF as a brand is pretty affordable, and they are an indie brand, and I just think that it's a really nice quality, and to get so many glitters in a palette that works well, I feel like is a really good investment to make. If you're someone who isn't, if you're like me, who isn't super into glitter, but every now and then you like to play, I feel like this is a palette you could buy and be set for life, because you got a yellow, you got a red, you got a purple, you got a blue. You kind of got the rainbow here, and I never foresee myself needing any more glitter, if that makes sense. So I was very impressed with that, and just how many options this gave me for the price, and just being able to play with glitter, but not break the bank trying to explore glitter. I feel like my favorite way, and the way I would use it and have the best results and enjoy it the most, is if I put the glitter glue down and then just took my, can I open this and hold this correctly? But I just took my finger and tapped it over whatever eye look. So I would have color down, and then I would just take this and have it kind of as a topper. I did this in my makeup fails video, which I can leave linked up here if you want to go see that look. But I took this shade and just tapped it over the look I had, and I thought it looked absolutely beautiful. I love the glitter glow it gave me, and I don't know, I just feel like that's my favorite way to use it, because when you tap it over with just your finger, not trying to be super precise, you don't have to worry about it being, the glitter glitter being evenly distributed or putting too much on and caking it on too much and then having it fall on your face throughout the day. So that's just kind of like a tip for me and how I like to use these glitters. And while I haven't had much experience with glitter, I feel like this was a really solid experience. I had a really good experience. It was relatively easy to use. I just had to be super careful when I took it off at night because I didn't want any of this getting in my eyeball and causing problems. And like I said, if you're wanting to explore glitter but don't want to break the bank or have to buy all these individual shadows or try to find a brand that's solid or have loose glitter, because loose glitter terrifies me, this is a great palette to have. Next up in line at number 5, this is the NYX Cosmetics Grind Palette. I have done a full review of this. I have done a dupe or dud against the Subculture palette with this, and I have done eye swatches with this. So I will have all that linked up here, well, one of them linked up here, and the rest down below that you can check out. But I love this palette. I have referenced it a lot, and over the course of the past couple months, there was a couple days I just felt like reaching for this palette. I just wanted some really good grungy colors. Really did enjoy it, and yeah, I'm not going to go too into detail because it's discontinued. I can't find it anywhere. I don't know why NYX discontinued it because it's a really solid palette. These shimmers aren't anything out of this world, but I reached for this palette mainly for those matte grungy tones, and I love it for that. So yeah, this ended up at number 5. I figured it was good middle ground for all the palettes that, you know, didn't wow me, weren't my cup of tea, weren't my colors that I enjoyed, and then the palettes that absolutely blew me out of the water. Grind landed right in the middle, and yeah, is my number 5 spot. Okay, now we're moving on to the top 4, and I do want to tell you this right now. It was so hard to figure out where to rank these because I wanted to just take all 4 of these palettes and name them my number 1. So even though I'm gonna pull one and say it's my number 4 spot, please know that it impressed me so much. It felt like a number 1 spot. But when it came to the top 4, I think all the quality and all of the looks you can create and the creativity you can have with these palettes are amazing and a number 1. But I just had to rank them with just personal preference and what I was feeling the past couple months. So that's how I figured out how to rank them. But yeah, I just wanted to say, oh my goodness, top 4, they're all amazing, but I had to choose. Okay, so with that disclaimer out of the way, for the 4th spot, I have the Vita Cosmetics La Dulce Vida palette. This one I did a first impressions on. I'll have it linked probably down below at this point. I don't know if I have any more room up there. But this palette I grabbed, I forget who told me, someone DM'd me and was like, hey, check out this new brand. They just launched a colorful palette, and I bought it like that day when I was looking. I was like, oh my goodness, I think it was like 20, 25 bucks. It was, I think with shipping, less than 25 bucks or around there. Super affordable and gave me so many options for bright, colorful looks. And I love that there was a large selection of matte, bright, colorful shadows in here and not just all shimmer. There are only 4 shimmers in here and the rest are mattes, and that's just my cup of tea. I love working with colorful mattes. I love, most days, many days, I like to just do an all matte look. I'm not always into the shimmer, so I like that this gives me the chance to go super colorful, but not having to put something super sparkly on top to kind of complete the look or give me the color I want. The one dud in this palette for me is the white. While it is really pretty and works, I have a tutorial on my Instagram using this where I just use the white on the lid. It is a very sheer white. It's not super pigmented, and even working with it and trying to build it up, it really doesn't build up that much. So that was, in my opinion, a bit of a dud, but all the other shadows, they build up really nicely if they're not already like right off the bat super pigmented. Like look at that. This yellow is really, really pretty. I used that in the look on Instagram and I just really loved it. There were many days over the past couple months where I would just use that yellow and maybe a little bit of green in my outer corner. I just really enjoyed it. The purples and the pinks also in this palette are really nice. But overall, yeah, really impressed with this palette. I went on to purchase another palette from Midas. I just purchased their Lemonade palette. I'm now an affiliate with Midas Cosmetics. I'm really impressed with Midas Cosmetics as a whole. And if I'm wanting to go somewhere super colorful, if I'm wanting to embrace those bright, vibrant, matte colors and matte looks, this is a palette I can reach for and depend on. Okay, so next up for the number 3 spot is a new brand as well. This is Kaleidos. Annette, you're going to correct me in the comments. Kaleidos. I think that's it. Kaleidos Cosmetics Futurism #1 Sci-Fi Green Palette. I'm sure this doesn't come as much a surprise to you guys, but I had to buy this palette because, like, look at all those greens and that grungy little mustard orange goodness right there. This is a really nice palette, but the reason I ranked it as number 3 is because, like, the one con with this palette, which shouldn't surprise anyone, but I just want to throw it out there because something I realized as I used it and kind of determined where I put this palette in my ranking video, is that you can't get a large variety of looks with this palette. These two greens, while they are different, they're very close. These two shimmers, while they are different, they're very close. So when I reached for this palette and used it, I feel like pretty much every time I had a green grungy look. Maybe I deepened it up with the black, and then I had like a gold or greenish shimmer on the lid, and that was kind of it. Variety wise, you can't change it up too much, or at least me at my level, at my expertise and what I'm able to do with makeup, I felt like I couldn't change it up that much with the shadows in this palette. But talking about just the shadows in this palette, the quality is amazing. These mattes are so, oh, I'm running out of room and I don't have a baby wipe. These mattes are so easy to blend. I'm gonna be going over my knuckle, so it probably won't look that good, but these mattes are so pretty, and these shimmers, like look at that. So beautiful, so intense, and if you put that over a wet base or if you spray your brush, they get even more intense. They're absolutely beautiful, and this is the palette that kind of helped me get back into my groove when it came to wanting to wear makeup, but I still wasn't wanting to do full bright colors because I just didn't feel really all that good yet. I noticed that I was reaching for this a lot because it's still kind of neutral lying, but it gave me the greens and the grunge that I personally love. I feel like if you're watching any of the, you know, YouTuber indie lovers that I watch, like Amy Loves Makeup or Nets or Paulina or Angelica, they've all been talking about this brand for a long time, so this probably comes as no surprise to you, but I just really enjoyed it, and I've created so many looks, maybe 10. I kept reaching back for this palette, especially when, like I said, I was sick, trying to get back into the groove of things, trying to feel better, trying to do stuff that would inspire me to get back into makeup, to get back into caring what I look like. This was a palette that really did it for me, and I thought the quality was stellar. The black is an extremely dark black, and because of that, it can be a little tricky to blend out, so I definitely had to go in with a careful hand whenever I use that black, but oh my goodness, is that the most intense black that I own in my collection? I kind of feel like it is, because it is just so black, so intense. But anyway, the black was a little tricky to work with, but really that is the only con, or the only kind of critique I can give with the formula of these eyeshadows. Otherwise, they were all really pretty, and I was just overall super duper impressed with this palette. All right, moving right along, we are at number 2. My number 1 and 2 spot. Top 4 was hard, but top 2, was even harder. I went back and forth for so long, but I put this one at the number 2 spot, and this is the Menagerie Cosmetics Feral palette. I have already reviewed this on my YouTube channel before. I'll have that link down below if you want to see that. I don't think I did any looks. I have done a palette bingo with this, so I'll leave that look linked down below as well if you want to see that. But I had pulled this back out just because as I was getting more into makeup, I wanted to get into color, but I still had those days where I just didn't want to bother with it. So I found that this palette was fantastic for the days when I wanted to go bright and bold with my eye look, or if I wanted to go super neutral, because it has these shades up here. There were a couple days where I would put like maybe a little brown in my crease, smoke it out with this darker, grungy kind of gray brown in my outer corner, and call it a day. And it was like a super neutral look. Or if I wanted to go a little more colorful or just go the grungy route, I could grab these greens, the yellow and orange, some of my favorite colors, as I said, to work with. And this palette just kind of gave it all in one to me. And this shade right here, which is called, Huchera, this green right here, absolutely beautiful. It's my favorite shimmer, I think, that I've ever tried from Menagerie Cosmetics. And I mentioned this, I think, on the live stream that I did, but something I've noticed the more I've tried from Menagerie Cosmetics, because I'm using their Whale Song palette right now, but something I've noticed a little bit more is that I'm not a huge, crazy fan of their shimmers, because while they're super pretty, I just feel like they're a little bit difficult to work with. They can be, and they're like extremely loose, I guess you could say. Like this shade right here is just very crumbly. That's the word, like super crumbly. I don't know if you can see, but it's just got all these crumbs on my finger, which makes it, it just makes it a little tricky to apply. They're gorgeous, and sometimes I just put up with, them being a little bit more difficult to put on, but that's just something I noticed, that it's not all the time that I'm in the mood to use their shimmers or just prefer to use their shimmers, but their mattes, Their mattes are where Menagerie has my heart. And this is another palette that only has 3 shimmers and the rest mattes, and there's a lot of bright and colorful mattes, which is what I like to work with. They all blend really nicely. I never have a problem. So yeah, this ended up at my number 2 spot. As I said, I've already reviewed it, so I'll have that link down below if you want more information and go more into where, if you want to see more looks that I've done with this palette, you can look at the links down below. But yeah, this is just one that I pulled back out because I missed it, and every time I used it in a look, or every time I pulled for it, I just enjoyed playing with makeup that day, and I enjoyed the looks that I created from it. So had to give it to the Farrow palette. This palette in general just has a special place in my heart because it has yellow, orange, and green and grungy tones all in one little palette, which is my favorite. Alright, now for number 1. Like I said, this was super hard, but I had to give it to Lethal Cosmetics Hive Collection. Now this is not a palette, these are singles, but I purchased it as the collection, so they still sell, as far as I know, this collection as a hive, which is everything you see right here. And the reason I put this above the Farrow palette is because this is the palette I reached for so many times, way more than the Farrow palette over the past few months, because when I was feeling more neutral, but I still wanted to play with color, but I still wanted to have like a great experience, and I knew that the colors and the shadows would blend and work beautifully together and wear nicely on my skin and on my eyes throughout the day, this is what I reached for because I know I could depend on it. I don't think I've said it yet, but I do have a review of this already up on my YouTube channel. I'll have that video linked down below if you want to see it, so I won't go too much into detail, but I cannot rave to you guys enough about the quality of Hive's matte formula and their shimmers. Their shimmers are so crazy soft, and they just feel so nice, so intense, but not crumbly at all, very smooth. And then their mattes, like this shade, just again, so soft, so nice to work with. They blend so well, never have any problems. Let's put this here. Never have any problems blending them. Very pigmented, and the shimmers just glide right on the lid. So beautiful. Yeah, I love it. And I think another reason that this ranked above the Farrow palette is because I could get a really green look from this palette. I could get a very kind of orangey reddish tone look from this palette. I could get a purple look from this palette, and I could get a blue look from this palette. And it just kind of gave me everything in one. This inner corner highlight shade, absolutely gorgeous. I used it in every single look to really give myself an amazing inner corner highlight. Like, look at that. I'm going off screen here, but I'm a mess. But it just totally impressed me each and every time that I use this. And I think out of all the palettes that I have here, I reached for this one the most and created the most looks with it, just because it's just a solid palette. I didn't have to worry about it not blending. I didn't have to worry about the shades not working out or looking good, the shade combos. I didn't have to worry about, you know, the shimmers being difficult to put on my lid. It just was so easy, and I just cannot recommend this collection, this brand to you guys enough. Seriously, I feel like each palette will have a con to it, and I'm sitting here trying to think of a con because I always like to give you guys the pros and the cons. But I really don't have any. I'm trying to think here. Oof. But this palette just kind of has it all for me. This is the only collection palette that I've purchased from them. They do sell these little magnetic palettes that are really good quality, and I really enjoy having this here and having it all kind of in this collection together. They are, I think, a little bit more expensive, but trust me when I tell you the price is worth it because of the quality that they give you when they send it. I know I mentioned this already in my review, so go check that out if you want to see examples. But what they packaged the individual eyeshadows in to send to you blew me away. I've never had any single eyeshadows come to me like that. High-end or indie, I've purchased many single shadows over the course of the last couple of years, and none of them came in the I just felt like it was so luxurious, the packaging that it came in, and it was just so well packaged and so well thought through, and just the little details that they put everywhere on their brand. Super impressed. So if you can't tell, I feel like it's fitting for this to be number 1 because I just can't stop gushing over it. Alright, so now that I am a royal mess with eyeshadow everywhere, that is going to wrap up this video. I'm going to try to clean up my hands here real quick. But yeah, that is ranking my 10 most used palettes over the course of the summer. I think I'm going to name this video something like that, but those are the palettes that I have been reaching for ever since the last kind of update that I gave you guys at the beginning of May, and I just feel like I have really solid thoughts of, because that's just kind of what I've been sticking to through, what, 4 or 5 months? It's been a while, but I hope that you guys found that helpful. I hope I was able to go in depth enough on the newer palettes to my collection section and also give you guys references for stuff I've already reviewed on my blog to kind of go back to those videos if you want more in-depth information or if you'd like to see more looks with them. Let me know what you guys think about the ranking of the palettes video. Do you like this concept? Do you like this ranking? Does it help you get a better feel for the palette and, you know, understanding my opinions of it and kind of my preferences and whatnot? Let me know what you think. But yeah, that is going to do it. I'm sure this video is plenty long, so I'm going to wrap it up here and I will see you guys very soon in my next video. Bye guys.